What's up, everybody? Welcome into the final Thursday sports edition of The Slate here on DraftKings YouTube and Twitch pages. Great to be with you. I'm Adam Kaufman. I'm not alone. I am with Gary and Thorne. I am with Matt LaMarca. Maybe, just maybe, we will be joined by Brendan Glasheen at some point, guys, over the course of this next 40 minutes, because I hate to think of a world in which the slate doesn't exist, which for anyone that has not been paying attention this week, the slate will cease to exist after this week. And he's not on the program tomorrow because of his very important play-by-play responsibilities. So today was the day. Today was the day that we were working to try and, eke him in, just sort of carve a lane for Glash to make one final appearance on this show. And he's in traffic, guys. So we're going to see if we can get him on his phone or something like that.
See, I heard he caused a traffic accident so he wouldn't have to be on this show. But again, the Grapevine is a tough place.
Well, sad. It's sad is really what he would tell you. But hopefully, and I don't know, producer Eamon, maybe you can be in touch with one Brendan Glasheen. We'll see if we can get him on this show at some point in time. And Matt Cody, our technical director, our esteemed TD, would love to welcome him into the chat. But in the meantime, it is the three of us. Obviously, we'll get to a little bit of Major League Baseball. It's been an interesting day in some ways. Of course, the baseball slate is already well underway. You still get some more action tonight. But sort of the name of the game today, guys, is NBA. You got the draft tonight, and of course, trades are being made. There was... For Boston, it was a blockbuster. I would hesitate to call it an NBA blockbuster, but obviously some big names did move. Kristaps Porzingis, after an original three-team deal fell apart involving the Clippers, instead the Grizzlies jumped in. Porzingis still wound up going to the Boston Celtics as they retool. Marcus Smart, longest tenured C's player, went to Memphis, as opposed to Malcolm Brogdon going to the Clippers, which was the original plan. You had Tyus Jones end up going to Washington. Another deal that was made today, Jordan Poole, only days after signing a new contract, leaves the Warriors, winds up getting dealt in a move for Chris Paul. So he ends up going to Washington. Chris Paul ends up going to the Warriors to team up with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, perhaps Draymond Green if they work out a new contract there, obviously. And who knows what in the world is going to happen tonight with respect to trades. So, LaMarca, let's start with you here. Just sort of your reaction of what has been going on in the last couple of weeks with regard to big names changing homes and what it means going forward.
I think that this is a case of two teams with championship aspirations just pushing their chips in, right? The Warriors, they were kind of in this weird position where they were playing for the present, but they were also playing for the future. You know, they've had a lot of lottery picks over the past few years, guys like Jonathan Kuminga, and James Wiseman, who's now gone, but it was sort of considered that Jordan Poole was going to be the guy to lead the post Steph Curry era. And I like the fact that they decided to just go for it, try to get another title. I don't think you can really make the argument that Jordan Poole is a better player than Chris Paul at this point. So there are some size concerns, right? You playing Chris Paul and Steph Curry together, it's a bit of an odd fit. Mm-hmm. But I think, Chris Paul has a proven reputation of whenever he changes teams, the place that he is going to seems to always get better. I know he's older now. He's coming off a season where he wasn't great, but he also wasn't asked to do all that much playing alongside Devin Booker and Kevin Durant for part of the season. And, he can be a 30-minute a game type of guy with the Warriors and do all of his typical Chris Paul stuff. So I think it was a nice trade for them. And then of course we can go further into the Celtics as well. But I think a lot of the same things there, right? You kind of had a log jam of guards with Smart and Brogdon and Derek White. But you didn't have a reliable big man, right? Robert Williams is great, but can't really trust his health. Al Horford getting up there in age. So I think it's a high risk move bringing in a guy like Porzingis who does have serious injury concerns, but he played 65 games last year and it was arguably the best season of his career. You look at some of the efficiency metrics. He was number one in the league in terms of post up scoring, points per possession. He was great at attacking closeouts. He shot a really high percentage from 3-point range. And he can, I think that the upside of the Celtics is undoubtedly higher with him than it was with Marcus Smart.
Celtics are the co-favorites on the DraftKings Sportsbook to win the championship next year, plus 475. They were marginally behind Nuggets before this trade, who, of course, are the defending champs, also plus 475. I guess to pick up on what LaMarca was just talking about, Gary, and what I would wonder going forward, if I am a Celtics fan, but if I'm a Celtics fan, what analyzing this trade, not to say that Marcus Smart is this picture of durability. He's not like Jason Tatum, never missing a game, but Porzingis with that 65 games, I wonder, is it because, as LaMarca said, he hadn't come close to that since his second year in the league when he was 21. So is this a case of a guy who's 27 going on 28, who's really just early or entering his prime years, that maybe we're starting to see statistically what he did last year is a little bit of a new normal? And so, hey, get excited. Or was that potentially a real outlier season in the way that he shot the ball, the durability, all of it? On a very bad
1995, so I would dispute that your 27, 28-year-old season is your prime. Your prime in the NBA is when you're 22. But look, I think this is one of those weird trades, and it's funny. I don't want to take someone's take here. I believe it was Eric Corrine of The Athletic who sort of tweeted out something this morning that was saying this is like the 9th consecutive Celtics transaction where you look at it and go, oh, the Celtics won this trade. Like if I'm just going based solely on asset management and is the roster better than it was prior to this trade, they've done it again. And look, even when I went to sleep last night and the framework was just Smart out, Porzingis in, I was like, yeah, that's a win. That's a win for the Celtics because Marcus Smart, like Matt was saying, I think Derek White is just a better player than Marcus Smart at this point. Derek White is maybe the only case you could make, and I think it's a case that'd be hard to make after last season, is that Smart's a better perimeter defender, but, White's fantastic on defense in his own right. So you need more minutes for Derek White. He wasn't going to get the amount of minutes he needs to play if Marcus Smart was there. I mean, I make jokes about Peyton Pritchard and him being the future MVP, the way some people talk about him, but that guy probably deserves to be the third guard on a decent team. So like, it's not as if they don't even have the depth to sort of like replace their guard depth. They're going to be fine. But while the Celtics continue to win these trades on paper, you always do look at every transaction they make. And this has been a big issue with the Celtics the last couple of seasons. You could probably speak better to it than I could, Koff, but they seem to always lose these from like a team building or a locker room sort of mentality perspective. Like they just traded the heart and soul of their team. And look, I will admit, I am far more analytical. I am far more look at the talent on this roster than I am what's going on, what's the drama of a particular NBA team. But, we've seen it time and time again with the Celtics. They've had leadership issues. And it seemed like Marcus Smart was always the guy who was at least holding this together somehow. And I do wonder, because Kristaps Porzingis is not that guy. So I do just wonder, especially after you're probably going to pay Jaylen Brown, $300 million or whatever his extension is going to be. Yeah. Just what the mentality of this locker room is, because I really think that's the only thing that could possibly hold them back.
Well, so to your point, I do think, and we won't turn this into a whole Celtics conversation. We've already honestly gone a little bit longer on it than I even anticipated. But yeah, I mean, the whole heart and soul and winning plays and glue guy and all that stuff that people like to talk about with Marcus Smart. And there's the other side of it too. He
still does a million things that drive you crazy.
Oh, he takes some
right. Well, I was going to say shot selection or flopping or, people criticize ego and whether or not he's truly part of a big three, all of that. I guess what I would say in terms of the internal is I just hope, because I do believe this matters in today's star-driven league, I just hope that Jason Tatum in particular, but Jaylen Brown as well, I hope these guys were involved. I hope they signed off on this, because these are two guys that, Brown is up for a supermax. A year from now, Tatum is up for a supermax. You could say money talks and they're just going to sign regardless, and that may very well be true. But you want to make sure that these guys agree with what Brad Stevens is doing there. And I think Porzingis for Malcolm Brogdon, no brainer. I mean, like, please, where do I sign? I think you could nitpick this trade. I don't view this as the home run that you do, Garion. But again, that's not the main point
I
here.
didn't say it was a home run.
You said they won.
Both sides of the coin.
Well, you said they won the trade,
trade.
which I'm not even honestly sure that they did.
Somehow too. Like, I think they did really, really well. Again, my only concern is the stuff that's intangible, and I can't speak to that right now because it's intangible. But
and here's what I would say to that, Garion. If they can't get over Marcus Smart being traded because it's in the best interest of the team, then they're not the type of dudes you want to build around anyway. I think we have to realize that players play and they don't make decisions for a reason. I mean, we always joke about how LeBron James is the worst GM in the league, right? There was Giannis was angry when the team got rid of Jason Kidd at head coach. Like, you got to do what you think is in the best interest of the team. And personally, I think Marcus Smart has been overrated, is overrated. You're talking about a guard who is a average shooter and an above average defender, and you can find that elsewhere. Garion said they're better with Derek White. I agree. The on-off data from last year supports that claim. And again, I just think your ceiling is so much higher, and that's what we're talking about, right? The Celtics' goal is to win a title. They've done everything else but. So all the focus should be on what gets us to that next step, and I do think that this could be that move.
So if you're looking at the title odds, I mentioned obviously Boston and Denver being tied for first, but after that, we're looking at it here. Phoenix plus 700, marginally ahead of the Bucks at plus 750, and then odds get a little bit longer as you have the Lakers, the Sixers, Warriors with their move, Heat, and so on and so forth. But there's no value on Denver. There's no value on Boston, Garion. If you're looking for a team that you truly believe in, that is worth a futures bet, where you're trying to find championship value, where is it?
So, I mean, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, and it's getting a little harder to talk about it because the runway is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. But my philosophy on this is you have to find teams who still have moves to make, who still aren't all in. Like we just talked about it. The Suns, all in. The Celtics, all in. Like they've made their moves. This is what these rosters look like, barring some little tweaks here and there. But, you look at Cavaliers sitting at 28-1, a team that was exceedingly good, both analytically and eye test wise during the regular season last year. Do they start feeling the pressure of the fact that this is maybe the last year they have with Donovan Mitchell? The Pelicans, we've heard nothing but talk about the Pelicans. I mean, even tonight, possibly wanting to move into that top three. I don't know how viable that is anymore, but a lot of rumors surrounding that. A lot of rumors surrounding maybe mixing up that core of Zion and Ingram. And again, this is a team that has assets to trade. I think the Knicks are another team you could kind of throw into that category. Like we heard rumors this morning that they were actively shopping and possibly in the Paul George market. Like these are just teams that are probably going to do something. And at the end of the day, transactions mean movement in the betting lines. And if the Knicks were to trade for Paul George in the next 6 hours, suddenly they wouldn't be 50-1 anymore. They'd be 30-1. So those are the kind of bets that I'm looking to make right now.
LaMarca?
I agree with everything Garion said with one possible exception. And I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, but I don't think plus 475 is a bad price for Denver. I just don't see a scenario where they're not the favorites in the West come playoff time. They're too good. Nikola Jokic really is just that dude. And as long as they stay healthy, right, that's basically what I think this bet comes down to. If they're healthy and they can get the number one seed again, I just think it's going to be super hard to knock them out in the playoffs. So I don't mind plus 475 there. I don't mind the Warriors plus 1,300. They're being priced like they're this team that can't compete anymore. And I'm not ready to say that yet, especially after acquiring Chris Paul. So I'm not necessarily dipping into like the super long shots in the NFL or the NBA. I just don't think it's a sport where that really happens. You kind of need to have a top level stud on your team to contend. So that's really what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the guys that are the best players in this league. And, that's really where I focus my futures portfolio.
Gary, let me send this question to you, me being the Celtics guy, you being the Raptors guy. Chris Haynes tweeted out about a minute ago. Haynes, of course, senior NBA insider for TNT and Bleacher Report. There's a growing sentiment. Toronto star Pascal Siakam, who is on an expiring deal, would not re-sign with the team who attempts to trade for him, as his preference is to remain with the Raptors. What do you think?
The rare superstar who wants to stay in Toronto. Maybe the first one. Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. I mean, obviously the Raptors could offer him more. Look, I could talk about this for like an hour and a half. We don't have that kind of time. I am curious, the farther we get into the dominance that we've seen of European players starting to take over the NBA, and to be perfectly frank, Canadian players starting to take over the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
I am like 10, 15 years from now, very interested, because there is this sentiment. I know like Ethan Strauss wrote an entire article about this one time about how players don't want to play in Toronto for as much as Canadians tell you it's basically just slightly more North USA. It doesn't really matter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The more and more we have players coming in from Greece and Africa and Slovenia, like I don't think they care, New York or Toronto. I don't think it makes that much of a difference for them. So someone like Siakam, I mean, it's a guy who spent 4 years of his life in the States in college, but he has no ties to these like major American markets. So it doesn't shock me necessarily. I am curious to see if the Raptors do make a move tonight. I know Siakam's name has been floated around a lot. But with some of the things that have happened in the last week, Gary Trent opting into his player option, which was unexpected. The salary cap being a couple $1 million higher than maybe the estimates coming into this summer were. It seems like there's a viable path to them just re-signing Fred VanVleet and Jakob Poeltl and kind of running this thing back again. I'm not sure why they would do that, but that's maybe the direction that they're kind of looking to go right now. So that's kind of the Raptors vibe, I would say, at this moment.
So, Maddie, as you look ahead to tonight and DraftKings Sportsbook, we can pull up the odds for first overall pick. We know who it's going to be, obviously. It's going to be Wemby.
Sorry, can I just say one before we get to the draft tonight? Can I just say one thing about the Wizards?
Mm-hmm.
Good for the Wizards, man. They've been getting dogged all week for how little they got for Porzingis, for Beal. And then within like 3 minutes of the report that they've traded Chris Paul, we get the actual haul that they got for Bradley Beal, which turned into 6 second-round picks and 4 first-round pick swaps going all the way to 2030. The Phoenix Suns, aside from the 52nd pick tonight, really don't have a set-in-stone draft pick for the next 7 seasons. Kevin Durant's in his late 30s. Bradley Beal's like almost 30. Even Devin Booker's 26.
I want to look. How old exactly is Kevin Durant? I'm asking this for a reason.
35?
I'm going to pull it up. Hang on. Kevin Durant is 34, but will turn 35 in September. Yeah. So upcoming season, he's 35.
And look, they might win a championship in the next 2 years. So great for them. But those pick swaps in 2028 and 2030 are no laughing matter. Like that is suddenly their haul that they got back. Mm-hmm. And look, they'll probably take Jordan Poole, who in 3 years, his contract's not going to look that bad. And this is someone who's about to take 30 shots a game and average 29 points a game for the Wizards. They'll flip him for something too. They'll flip Tyus Jones for something. Like they have a haul here. I think they just need to be applauded for a pretty good handling of a situation where their star player with a no trade clause was like, I only want to go to Phoenix. I think they did okay.
If there was a line,
just to add to Garrigan's point, something else we've talked about. Anytime that you're trading a star player, it never feels like you're getting enough, but these teams end up making out better than you realize, right? Like, if you are the Oklahoma City Thunder and when you traded away Paul George to the Clippers, it didn't feel great that you were giving up, that you were only getting these draft picks that were probably going to be in the late 20s. And things in Los Angeles are deteriorating a lot quicker than I think you realize, right? Same for the Pelicans with the Lakers. They've made out very well in that Anthony Davis trade. And then, of course, going back years, you've got that Brooklyn Nets disaster when they traded for Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. So like it takes time to fully realize the benefits of these, but I think that these teams that are sort of, being held at gunpoint by a star player, they ultimately end up making out pretty well.
We should talk to Johnny Avello about this, the DK Sportsbooks director of race and sports operations, I believe his official title. If there was a line on the DraftKings Sportsbook, how many more teams will Kevin Durant play for in his career? What would you set that? Would you set it at 1.5? Would you set it at 2.5? How much is he going to bounce around?
4 years left in Phoenix?
Well, in theory.
Well, sure. His current contract length is 4 years.
But that's exactly my point.
Yeah, I'd probably take the over on 1.5.
I think I'd take the under, but I think 1.5 is the number.
I just think he'll play a while. I think he'll.
It does seem like he's that guy that he just loves basketball.
Yeah.
But you never know. At this point, his body might not hold.
Well, he's that guy that loves basketball and just perpetually hates where he is playing basketball, and therefore there's the impetus to continue moving around.
He just hates the fans and the media. He doesn't hate where he's playing.
And some of his teammates too. He's just an unhappy guy. It's okay. We all know one. Let's talk NBA draft here because we're a little less than 2 hours away from it starting at this point in time. 7:30 Eastern. We know that Wemby is going to go number 1. Some people have been placing those bets just to see their bankrolls grow by a few cents, just to get the win. Seeing those bets on the DraftKings Sportsbook.
Hey, if I had $20,000 in my account, I'd put it on Victor.
Just to make what, a couple hundred or whatever it is,
literally $100.
Yeah, $100.
Yeah. So there you go. Scoot Henderson, though, there's been movement with him jumping up back into the. It's been kind of all over the place. Looking at the DK Sportsbook, Brandon Miller is still a favorite at number 2, but some believe Scoot Henderson is going to go number 2. Where ultimately Lamarca, and I don't know how much either of you have really taken a deep dive into some of your favorite bets and props and things like that for tonight, but where are you finding value on this draft this evening?
I think Scoot at plus money to go number 2 is solid. It kind of seems like that's the direction that Charlotte is leaning. I also don't think Charlotte even 100% knows what they're going to do at this point. I think that in a vacuum, they know that Brandon Miller is a better team fit, but they also think that Scoot Henderson is the better player, right? And that's sort of an interesting dilemma when you're picking number 2. Do you just want the best player possible, or do you want the player who's going to be a better theoretical fit for your team? And I think ultimately in the end, best player possible wins out, and they do take Scoot. And then Brandon Miller goes 3 to Portland would be my guess. Although you are starting to hear some Amen Thompson stuff as well, but I would be surprised if it's not, Wembanyama and then Scoot and Miller in some order. Yeah,
probably Thompson at 4. The two Thompsons, 1 at 4, 1 at 5, possibly. We'll see.
I think both Thompsons go in the top 5. I think 4 and 5 makes a lot of sense for them.
Yeah, seems like Damon's going first though.
Yes.
What about whether you're, we could pull up these index pages, but whether it's player draft position, top 5, top 10, first round pick, that type of thing. Anything, Gary, that you're targeting?
I mean, I'll be honest. I'm a full-time professional baseball and professional basketball and professional football writer and analyst. Don't have a lot of time to watch college basketball, so I'm not a big NBA draft bettor. I would say in general, this is not a take that's going to help anybody or excite anybody, but a lot of the money made betting the draft, whether it be NBA or NFL, it's made weeks before the draft. I don't think there's a ton of money to be made betting the draft 2 hours before said draft is starting. I just think at that point, I mean, aside from this very interesting situation we do have, because I agree with Matt, I think there is still an opportunity to just bet Scoot to be the second overall pick at plus 105. I think that's fine. But really, if you've been paying attention to specifically Shams tweeting out this stuff the last couple of weeks and the reports we've been getting, I think in the last 72 hours, Miller and Scoot have each been at least minus 250. I think even on some sites, you saw Miller as high as minus 600 to be the second overall pick within the last 48 hours. you could have bet each of these guys at like plus 250 to be the second pick and just be sitting there and not really care who gets it at this point. But, taking whichever one of those two guys is currently at plus money is a fine bet by me. But again, I think really the value is already off the board. And I know that stinks to say, but it's how I truly feel.
Yeah, it's true of the football draft as well, the NFL draft. I mean, it's not an uncommon sentiment that you're raising here. Anything either of you would like to add on the NBA draft tonight before we do move over, Gary?
I'd like to look at some of these odds because I do agree with what Garion said, but I kind of like some of these. I think as Suarez moved to minus 155 to be a top 5 pick. That's a little thin for me. What's Grady Dick's draft position prop look like? Because I don't have these as a New Yorker, so this is all
over 10.5, minus 425.
Damn, because I really like that over as well. Especially
it's crazy how fast they
like
are.
Dorothy Shoe. But yeah, neither of those really stand out as great to me anymore. So
yeah, I'm just looking to see if there's anything. No, it's fine. I get it. Hey, you want to take advantage of what's available to you, all the knowledge that we've got here. Just looking to see first round. Yeah, you'd have to really dissect those potential second round guys to see if you're, once you start analyzing, obviously
I'll give you one here. I'll give you one on that page.
I also just had one on that last page. I wonder if it's the same one.
I'm going to give you Amari Bailey plus 450 to be a first round pick.
Okay.
I think that there is some team that will potentially fall in love with the the skill set that Bailey brings to the table. He wasn't great as a freshman, but he entered the year as a top 10 recruit college basketball. He finished he still shot like 40% from 3-point range. I think there is a chance that some team, in the back end of the first round views him as a lottery type talent and possibly rolls the dice on him. So I don't mind him at plus 450. I don't expect him to necessarily be a first round pick, but I think that that's a good enough price tag to roll the dice.
Sure. All right.
I was just going to say Andre Jackson Jr., who feel like there's just been a little buzz today. I feel like I've seen his name around. I feel like there's been some people even connecting him. Now that the Celtics have the 25th pick, I've seen a little bit of buzz in that direction. I just think that, just someone there's a little smoke. And it seems like that's a pretty good price, plus 500 for him to maybe fall into that first round.
We are down to our final few minutes. I do want to pay off the whole Thursday sports motif we've been doing all these months and mix in another one. Get a little baseball in. Padres well on their way to a 10-0 win in San Francisco against the Giants. But you got 3 games coming up tonight, Garion, with Rays are our favorites, Marlins as well, Seattle on the road. What jumps out at you from a sportsbook side of things, or just best bets that you're eager to put some money on tonight?
I got two favorite bets tonight.
Okay.
I'm going to take the Pirates on the money line at plus 145. Stinks that Brian Reynolds was put on the IL today. That definitely doesn't help their relatively underwhelming offense. But when you look at this game just in a very basic sense, I know the Pirates have lost 9 games in a row. I'm aware of this. Mitch Keller is right-handed. The Marlins have a 113 WRC plus against lefties, a 93 WRC plus against righties. Braxton Garrett is left-handed. The Pirates have an 89 WRC plus against right-handed pitching, a 107 WRC plus against left-handed pitching. One team is in their preferred split, one team is not. The team that is in their preferred split has their ace on the mound. Keller has gotten a little bit roughed up in his last 4 or 5 starts. I understand that, but he's still someone who's hovering around a 3.3 ERA, a 3.3 expected ERA, and a 3.3 FIP. I think he's good. Braxton Garrett, I don't think he's as good. So I'm just going to take the Pirates at plus 145. They've got to win at some point. The Marlins aren't that good. The other bet I like, I think it's still at minus 120. We'll see. But if the sports books continue to keep setting Brian Woo's strikeout prop at 5.5, just keep pounding the over. This guy is an elite strikeout pitcher. In his last start, it was even money plus 100. At least tonight it was minus 120. But Wu has struck out 37% of the batters he has faced so far this season. He was striking out 35% of the batters he was seeing in AA. He struck out 34% of the batters he faced across 3 levels in 2022. The kid's got strikeout stuff. The Yankees are a league average strikeout team. All he's going to have to do is pitch 5 innings, maybe 4 innings to rack up 6 strikeouts.
So he's over 7.5 is his total now at this point, and that's minus 105.
It's over 7.5.
No. That's the game total. He wasn't looking.
Oh, I thought I had his pitcher prop up. Nope, you're right, 5.5. I apologize. I
was like, of course, correct. Okay, it's minus 140 now. It's minus.
Would have been a big course correct, but yeah, minus 140.
Okay, I was like, wow. I was like, Koff. I have never seen a strikeout prop move 2 full strikeouts. This is incredible stuff.
It was history in one of these final days of the slate. All right, so pound the over on Brian Wu and his strikeouts.
Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to.
Yeah.
I also like the Mariners, but I'm just taking them on the money line tonight.
Okay. What I was going to ask you guys about, and we will get out of here in a second, really quickly on this one, just because I'm invested in this. I want to know what you think. The over 7.5 runs in the Rays Royals game. Make me feel good and not terrible about it.
The Rays can score runs.
Yeah.
You better hope they score like 5 to 6 of them, though.
Yeah. And it kind of stinks that Wander Franco is apparently a bad teammate and he doesn't get to play tonight. But aside from that.
All right, very good. Well, this the final Thursday sports edition of the slate. There is one more slate coming your way, which is 23 hours from now, and we will have Lamarca's going to be here. Ulrich is going to be here. I might be here, and if I'm not, bye. This has been fun. Brendan Glasheen apparently will not be making an appearance unless he, I don't know, zooms in from traffic somewhere tomorrow as well. But it's been a great pleasure either way. Thanks to our technical director, Matt Cody. Eamon, our producer. You got a Madden sim coming your way in just a few minutes. The virtual Bucks at the virtual Giants. For Garion, Lamarca, I'm